Super Mario Sunshine is my all-time favorite video game. Not just on the GameCube, but in general. And I've played games on Xbox, PlayStation, GameCube, Wii, whatever, you name it. Sunshine is my absolute all-time favorite video game. And I'm not talking about the new one, like the remastered on the Switch. I'm talking about the classic GameCube Super Mario Sunshine. That's the best way to play it. It runs the best, and it doesn't have the weird nuances that, the Super Mario 3D All-Stars introduced, like inverted the camera, and all those weird things. But if you watch my GameCube collection video, you know that this game ranks as the top. And it was a little bit controversial when it came out due to the fact that it was such a different take on a Mario open world game compared to Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo 64. Everybody expected that this game, for one thing, was going to launch with the GameCube, which it did not. It actually, GameCube launched with Luigi's Mansion. But this game was so different from 64 because it not only introduced FLUDD and all the hover dynamics, but it also introduced like a kind of a universal theme around all the levels being on this island, Isle Delfino, this island tropical setting. And that was throughout every single world, whether it was Noki Bay, Serena Beach, Gelato Beach. The one different one was probably Pianta Village. But apart from that, everything was this tropical kind of paradise theme. And this game was controversial because it changed Mario's movements radically, something that we haven't seen yet. You could argue that Cappy in Super Mario Odyssey changed it a little bit, but nothing like what this game introduced. This game introduced FLUDD, which gave you the ability to hover with Mario, but it also gave the ability to use the rocket nozzle, the turbo nozzle, and also introduced secret levels where you didn't have FLUDD, and then it became just a bare-bones platforming game, which I think is probably, if I had to guess, what people would have suspected this game to be. And I feel like some people wish that it didn't have FLUDD, and it was more like how the secret levels made you move with Mario without FLUDD. And FLUDD definitely changed the whole game as a whole because it gave you the ability to not only jump and hover long distances to get to where you need to be, but it also introduced a little bit of recoverability and retryability in the actual levels itself. Because if you missed your jump, you had then the opportunity to quickly open the hover nozzle and hover back to your destination. But if you didn't get it, there was a little bit more risk because you fell all the way down and essentially have to restart. And I think people wish that there was a little bit more like perhaps organic platforming without FLUDD, because some of the levels are highly dependent on you having FLUDD, and some of the levels actually require you to more or less hover to, let's say, a floating red coin kind of out in, just hovering in the air. So I can see the arguments from that, but I also think that this was such a radically new take on what open world Mario could be, and I just don't think that we've seen anything quite like this since. And I don't think that there has been such creativity, and I don't think there has been such risk-taking in a Mario open world 3D game like there was with Super Mario Sunshine. And this is a way overlooked title for Mario. The GameCube itself, I think, is a very underrated console. And just given the sales volume compared to the PlayStation 2 and Xbox at the time, the GameCube was way lower than both of those consoles. Obviously, all the consoles were outbeaten by the PlayStation 2 by a very large number. But the GameCube, unfortunately, because the sales were lower, not as many people played these really, really good games on the GameCube. And when you hear GameCube games talked about, like Sunshine, Luigi's Mansion, and so on, they're not usually high on people's list. And I don't know if that's from not playing it as a kid, or I don't know if that's from just comparing it to more traditional Mario titles. But the GameCube games, Super Mario Sunshine included, always seem to fall short on people's lists. But in my list, this game ranks at the top. Now, I will say I'm a little bit biased because I played these games when I was a kid. I have a lot of memories associated with playing and trying to figure out the levels in this game, particularly the hotel secret level where you're trying to figure out how you unlock Yoshi, how to get in the room, and the Manta Ray level and Noki 6 and all these very, very difficult levels. And I have a lot of emotion around these levels, and I have a lot of nostalgia around these levels because I can see myself playing them as a kid, and I think back to what it was like to play games in, I think, their purest form. When you bought them, you had the whole game, and there was no, YouTube to automatically figure out a solution to the level. Whereas now, you can just look up something if you get stuck. So I think games back then were much more like raw and kind of like an organic experience that we just don't see anymore. And Sunshine to me is what really represents that. And I think Sunshine, when I look at it compared to, let's say, Mario Odyssey, Mario Galaxy, Sunshine is the most unique because I think it introduced the most amount of risk. Nintendo had a lot to lose with the GameCube because not only were they competing against two major players in the console space now, but they had to follow up Super Mario 64, which was a revolutionary title in Mario. And I think that Super Mario 64 definitely overshadowed Sunshine, and I think is one of the contributing reasons why Sunshine doesn't get the recognition I think that it truly and rightfully deserves today. But if you ever played Sunshine, you know that it's not only a very fun game, but it's a very difficult game. Not that completing it is difficult, but getting very good at the game is very difficult because of all the movement mechanics that were introduced because of Flood and the different nozzle variations that you had, and also the different unpatched glitches that were made in the game as well, whether that's rocket storage and various things like that. It really changed how you thought about levels and how you thought about playing the game. One level that comes to mind in terms of difficulty is the Goopy Inferno level on Pianta Village, where you could either run straight through the Inferno and use a ghost to get hit and then jump off the barrier and make it to the mushroom, or you could go around the level and jump out of the water and have the water kind of spray on the goop, and that's where you would be able to walk closer to the mushroom. But I feel like this game introduced so much creativity in terms of how you went about solving the level. There was not usually one predefined linear path. There was usually a few different routes, and you could kind of make it up as you go. Like if you didn't want to, let's say, go all the way to the top of Rico Harbor and jump in the Shine Gate, you could actually do a spin jump off the crane and go underneath. And as a kid, I thought that was like a glitch, right? But looking back on it now, I know that's just a different way to complete the level. But it's something that you had to think about, and it's something that you had to experiment with and try. And I think that that's something that we're really missing in today's Nintendo games is just the raw creativity and the raw openness to explore and to try in a way where it feels organic, right? I think Sunshine does such a good job at giving the player the ability to solve it how they want. But I think there's a challenge really baked into the game because if you look at the blue coins, for example, which is one of the biggest criticisms of the game, and I totally get it, it's completely justified because I think the blue coin tracker was a little bit underdeveloped feature because it really, blue coins were level dependent, but there was little to no indication as to which blue coin you've already collected. So it became very difficult, especially on initial playthrough. One blue coin in particular that I always thought was rather odd was the blue coin that's hidden in the moon, and if you just spray the moon, and the blue coin would come down. Now, I've looked around, and obviously this is completely dependent on you going into Pianta Village at night and just happen to know that you have to spray the moon somehow. There is, I believe, one Pianta that gives you a slight clue, like briefly says something, I think, about the moon, but that's it. And it is so complicated to get all the blue coins if you don't know where to look. Some blue coins are hidden in a vase and you have to spray them. Some blue coins you have to ground pound, like a mushroom, a random box, and they're just littered throughout the game. There's 120 of them, and it's very difficult to collect them. And it's one of the reasons why getting a 120 shine completion run of this game is so difficult if you've never played this game before, because the blue coins are so hidden, but they're so like they're just not in obvious locations. But they're also level dependent. So one blue coin that's available on one level might not be available on another level. So if you accidentally go into, let's say, level 4 when you should have gone to level 1, you're not going to see the blue coin there. It makes it very, very difficult. Now I've played this game enough, and I've beaten the game fully through. I've gotten 120 shine sprites enough times to remember where I would say a majority of the blue coins are located. But if I didn't have that knowledge, like of playing this as a kid and trying to work out where all the blue coins were, I would have a really hard time figuring it out. I probably, honestly, would just probably resort to watching a blue coin 100% completion, collection video to figure out where they all are. It's very, very difficult. But I think it's one of the things that makes the game good. And one of my biggest criticisms of a game like Mario Odyssey is that there's almost too many moons to collect, where it's like you break a box and there's a moon. But the blue coins were a little bit different. They weren't as like widely dispersed, nor the shines, right? There was one shine generally per level, and I say generally because there were hidden shines. But the blue coins were kind of like the addition to the shines in a sense, because you could trade blue coins for shines, and it was, I think, 10 blue coins per shine. And so when when you're on your 9th blue coin and you collect a blue coin, a little bit it felt like you were collecting a shine, because you knew you could trade that in the Rico Harbor little building there. And that's how I kind of see it. And it was like, I feel like they did a good enough job at just giving you enough content, but not giving you too much. Now, with that being said, there are obviously some major things wrong with this game, right? One of my bigger criticisms of the game is that the squid blooper boss is way overused. I think you fight that boss, 3 different times, 2 times on Rico Harbor and 1 time in Noki Bay, and it's always the same fight. There's no variation to it at all. And so it seems a little bit overdone to do it 3 times. You also fight Petey twice, and there's a lot of repeated elements to the game, but I also think that there's a lot of underutilized parts of the game. Like, you don't really use Yoshi that much. I mean, you do, but it's always just to spray that orange goop to get it out of the way. And I think it was a missed opportunity to not have like a green Yoshi that could go like in the water. Like, you had to collect fruit to keep Yoshi out of his egg. So that felt kind of odd to me. Another thing that was glaringly wrong with the game, and I've made a video of it on my channel previously, is the pachinko level. I don't know what it's actually called. The level where the secret level in Delfino Plaza, where you basically have to go up into that machine and drop down, and hopefully you get one of the red coins. The level's completely broken. You basically hold left and you go right. It doesn't make any sense. The level doesn't really work. It's kind of just trial and error until you get it. And there's a few secret levels like that are just that don't really work, and that make it very difficult to complete. And it can be very frustrating because you know that it doesn't work and you're trying to complete it, but you're fighting the controls. So, but honestly, now that I've played them enough times, like, I kind of know like what to do, what not to do. But it can be frustrating, right? It can be frustrating. So there's some level design issues. There's some issues with the movement of this game. There's some definitely issues with like some very apparent like glitches that allow you to skip like entire portions of areas. I get all that, but I still think that this game is such a unique take on Mario. And if you've never played it, I would definitely recommend to play it. But I would recommend playing it through and not trying to like collect all the blue coins your first playthrough, especially if you've never played it. I definitely would try to just do like an any percent completion of it, just basically getting Shadow Mario in each of the worlds, which is also pretty another repeated element too. You just have to spray Shadow Mario, and that's level 7 of each world. So that was a bit repeated a little bit too. But once you get all the Shadow Marios, Corona Mountain opens up and you go in there and fight Bowser. And the infamous boat level is another another thing that just flat out doesn't work. I mean, again, the boat is so broken, and it makes that area so challenging. That to me would be how I would play it if I never played this game. Is just try to complete the whole like story of the game and then go back to collect the coins, rather than getting like stuck on an individual level trying to make sure that you found all the blue coins. Because like I said, not all the blue coins exist in each level in each world, so it can be very challenging. And also, like, the Z menu doesn't really give you much information. It doesn't tell you what blue coins you've collected. It just gives you like generic totals for the entire world itself. So again, very, very challenging. The game doesn't give you much help in terms of like how to complete things, where to look for blue coins. It's very much an exploratory like style game where you just kind of have to look, and you kind of have to be curious about, hey, what happens here, what happens there. And again, put all the annoying aspects of the game away, like the casino level. You can skip that, right? The balloon level where you have to do the rail cart, that's annoying, right? And essentially it's a reuse level because you already fought Bowser, the Mecha Bowser, that way, and then you're basically going back and do the balloon battle. So definitely a lot of reused elements. But I think what makes this game so good for me is the secret levels. And if you look at a secret level like Noki 6, it basically takes FLUDD away from you, and it makes the level like just raw technicality, right? You have to just master your jumps, and it's very, very difficult. I've been playing this game for about 10 or 12 years, and I still find myself making the same errors on these secret levels because of how technical the movement is. And sometimes, if I'm being honest, spin jumps just do not work, and they're very challenging to consistently get right. If you ever played this game for a long time, you know spin jumps, sometimes you do a spin jump and you just go way off into the wrong direction. And secret levels are very unforgiving. If you fall, you pretty much lose life and have to restart. So, but the secret levels I just love because they're so like, it's such a, like you go from tropical setting to this like space themed secret level. I don't really know where they exist, but they're super fun, but they're super technical, and it really ramps up the skill required to complete them, but also to complete them quickly. Because if you do them slow, like it's kind of fun, but trying to complete them faster and faster and get the movements really dialed in is really where this game becomes a lot of fun for me, because there's a lot of optimization that you can learn, and especially in secret levels, you can take different routes. Whereas like in the main game, sometimes you don't get the luxury of route optimization. So super fun there. But that's one of my favorite aspects of the game, are the secret levels. I keep mentioning Noki 6 because I think, in my opinion, Noki 6, maybe with the exception of the Chuckster level, which I've made a video on my channel about before, is probably the hardest secret level in the game, just because of how technical some of the jumps are. But that level also, I think, offers some of the most amount of optimization that you can make. You can skip a few sections of that level just by making different by doing your jumps and doing very technical jumps. Like one instance, you can jump and ground pound to get a little bit more height, and then you go up and touch and grab the wire, and then you can jump, effectively skipping the other part where you'd have to climb a pole and then hop across. So definitely things like that, if you know about it, like if you know how to get that extra height on the jump with the ground pound, if you know how to do turns, going into the camera button and panning quickly with the turn, that changes how you can play the game. And it takes, taking a level take about 30 minutes, you can bring that down to about 10. So super, super fun. And I would relate that to like how people are optimizing runs for 64. People are continually optimizing runs for Sunshine because of how much movement there is available for this game. So anyway, a ton of fun. But I have this copy, the not for resale copy for GameCube. I also have the limited run Super Mario 3D All Stars with Sunshine. I don't know why they make their games so hard to play. I wish they made them a little bit more available. I know they're having like the subscription GameCube service on Switch too, but these games are like expensive. Like this one already goes for about $100, which is crazy because they didn't produce it that much. And you also can't get it on the eShop anymore, which is crazy. And this game, the hard copy for GameCube in a good condition, will probably run you about $40, which is, I think, gone down from where it used to be. But $40 for a GameCube game is definitely not the highest you can go. But I feel like it's pretty reasonable for Mario game considering how old it is. But GameCube games, as everybody knows, like who's into GameCube, are that the prices of GameCube games are going up and up. And we have games costing about $100 that used to cost about $50 3 years ago, which is crazy. So anyway, that's all I got for today, and I really just wanted to talk about Sunshine because again, it's my all-time favorite game. So thank you all for watching. I'll see you in the next one.